Once upon a time, there was an ancient, massive tree that stood in a village. Its trunk was gnarled and twisted, and its branches grew in odd directions. Its bark was rough and uneven, and the wood was soft and filled with knots. Despite its size, the tree was considered entirely useless for carpentry or construction. The villagers scorned it, calling it the useless tree. One day, a skilled carpenter named Shah happened upon the tree. Seeing its immense size and unusual shape, Shah marveled at its appearance. But upon closer inspection, he remarked, "This tree is of no use at all. Its wood is unsuitable for making furniture, and its branches are too crooked to be used for beams. Such a worthless tree serves no purpose." The carpenter moved on, dismissing the tree entirely. That night, the carpenter had a dream. In the dream, the spirit of the tree appeared before him and spoke. "Why do you call me useless? Look at me. I have lived for centuries untouched by axes or saws. Precisely because I am useless, I have been spared the fate of other trees that were cut down to build houses or furniture. My gnarled branches and twisted trunk have allowed me to grow freely without interference. My so-called uselessness has granted me freedom and longevity. In my uselessness lies my greatest purpose." When the carpenter awoke, he reflected on the tree's words. He realized that the tree's value lay not in its utility to others, but in its ability to exist in harmony with its own nature. The tree was not useless, it was free from exploitation and able to fulfill its own purpose, untouched and enduring. This story challenges conventional notions of usefulness. In the carpenter's eyes, the tree had no value because it could not serve human purposes like construction or carpentry. However, the tree's so-called uselessness was the very reason for its survival. It was not cut down or exploited, allowing it to thrive in its natural state. This parable helps us reflect that utility is often subjective and context-dependent. What is deemed useless in one perspective may hold profound value in another. The story invites us to question societal standards of worth and to appreciate things for what they are rather than what they can do for us. This is Daoism, a millennia-old philosophy that encourages us to live in harmony with nature and in accordance with its principles. Daoism, also spelled Taoism, is an ancient Chinese philosophical and religious tradition that emphasizes living in harmony with the Tao or Tao, often translated as the Wei. Its origins trace back to the Zhou dynasty and gained prominence during the Warring States period as a response to societal turmoil. The question of who founded Daoism is complex, as Daoism evolved over centuries and does not have a single definitive founder in the way some other traditions do. However, the person most commonly credited as the founder of Daoism is Laozi or Lao Tzu, a semi-legendary figure traditionally believed to have authored the Tao Te Ching, the foundational text of Daoism. Laozi is said to have lived during the 6th or 5th century BCE, possibly as a contemporary of Confucius. His historical existence is debated, and some scholars consider him a symbolic figure rather than a historical person. Another pivotal figure in Daoism is Zhuangzi or Zhuangzi, who lived around the 4th century BCE. He expanded on Laozi's ideas in his text, Zhuangzi, using parables and allegories to explore Taoist concepts in greater depth. While Laozi is often seen as the philosophical founder, Zhuangzi significantly shaped the tradition. For over 2 millennia, thinkers, poets and spiritual seekers have contemplated the concept of the Tao, a term that defies simple definition, yet lies at the heart of one of the world's most profound philosophies. Daoism or Taoism revolves around this elusive idea. The Tao is often translated as the Wei, but this term only scratches the surface of its meaning. The Tao is not just a path. It is the source, the flow, and the ultimate reality that underpins all existence. To understand the Tao is not merely an intellectual exercise, it is a journey into the essence of life itself. It challenges us to look beyond the surface of things, to embrace paradox, and to see ourselves not as separate entities but as integral parts of a larger, interconnected whole. The Tao is both a cosmic principle and an invitation, a principle that governs the natural world and an invitation to align our lives with its rhythms. Laozi begins his seminal text with a paradox. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. This opening verse underscores the ineffable nature of the Tao. It cannot be fully described or captured in words because it transcends human comprehension. Language, no matter how precise, is a tool of limitation. It divides and categorizes, while the Tao is boundless and unified. It is the infinite source from which all things arise and to which all things ultimately return. Laozi, in the second chapter of the Tao Te Ching, writes, "Under heaven all can see beauty as beauty only because there is ugliness. All can know good as good only because there is evil. Thus, something and nothing produce each other. The difficult and the easy complement each other. The long and the short define each other. The high and the low depend on each other. Before and after follow each other." Yin and Yang is a fundamental concept in Taoism that describes the dual, complementary forces that make up and govern the universe. It symbolizes the idea that all things and phenomena exist as interdependent opposites that constantly interact to create balance and harmony in the world. Yin and Yang are often symbolized by the Taijitu, a circle divided into swirling black and white halves, each containing a small dot of the opposite color. This symbol visually encapsulates their interconnected and interdependent nature, emphasizing that each force carries the seed of the other. Yin represents qualities such as darkness, passivity, receptivity, coolness, softness, and femininity. It is associated with the moon, water, the night, and inward contracting energy. On the other hand, Yang embodies light, activity, assertiveness, warmth, hardness, and masculinity. It is linked to the sun, fire, the day, and outward expansive energy. These forces are not seen as opposites in conflict, but as complementary aspects of a unified whole. They exist in a state of constant interplay, creating balance and harmony in the natural world and human life. The relationship between Yin and Yang highlights their interdependence. Neither can exist without the other. For instance, there is no light without darkness, no activity without rest, and no creation without receptivity. Their balance is essential for harmony, as an excess of either force can lead to imbalance. Too much yin may result in stagnation, while an overabundance of yang can cause chaos. Moreover, yin and yang are in constant motion, transforming into one another in a cyclical process. Night transitions into day, winter gives way to spring, and stillness leads to movement. Take nature, for example. In nature, there is no inherent concept of superior or inferior. Everything simply exists as part of a larger, interconnected system. These judgments of value arise from human perception, largely based on what benefits or comforts us. Nature itself operates without hierarchy. Every element, whether large or small, strong or weak, visible or hidden, plays a role in maintaining balance and harmony. For example, a towering tree may seem more significant than a tiny insect, but both are essential to the ecosystem. The tree provides oxygen and shade, while the insect aids in pollination and decomposition, contributing to the cycle of life. Similarly, we often value gold over ordinary soil because gold is rare and serves economic and ornamental purposes, while soil is abundant and overlooked. Yet without soil, no life could flourish. The idea is that opposites exist not in competition, but in harmony. Just as yin and yang are not superior or inferior to one another, but instead complementary. The natural world operates through balance, not status. It is only human perception, shaped by our needs and desires, that assigns greater or lesser value to different aspects of nature. In reality, everything in nature has its own place, purpose and importance, regardless of whether humans recognize or value it. Taoism is often considered enigmatic and elusive. Rooted in the Tao or Tao, which means the way, Taoism offers a framework for understanding existence and living harmoniously with the universe. Despite its profound wisdom, many find Taoism difficult to grasp due to its abstract nature, paradoxical expressions, and deeply cultural context. Below are the primary reasons that contribute to the complexity of comprehending Taoism. Abstract and indescribable nature of the Tao. The cornerstone of Taoism, the Tao itself, is famously described as beyond words or comprehension. Laozi, in the opening lines of the Tao Te Ching, states, "The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao." This suggests that the Tao transcends linguistic description, rational thought, and conceptualization. As a result, trying to understand the Tao using conventional methods of logic and reasoning often leads to frustration. The Tao must be experienced intuitively rather than analyzed intellectually, a challenge for those accustomed to structured analytical thinking, which is contrary to most Western philosophy. Taoist texts frequently employ paradoxical language, which can seem confusing or contradictory to readers. For example, "The softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest," or "To gain knowledge, add something every day. To gain wisdom, remove something every day." These statements defy conventional logic and require readers to think beyond binary or linear frameworks. Paradoxes are used to challenge rigid perspectives and encourage a deeper understanding of reality's interconnected and cyclical nature. For those unfamiliar with this mode of expression, Taoist teachings can seem impenetrable. Focus on intuition over intellect. Western philosophical traditions often prioritize analytical reasoning, systematic thought, and logical argumentation. In contrast, Taoism emphasizes intuition, direct experience, and nonlinear thinking. This approach can feel alien to those trained to seek definitive answers or logical clarity. For example, Taoist meditation practices and exercises like Tai Chi emphasize embodied understanding rather than intellectual explanation. The journey to comprehend Taoism often requires letting go of the need to know in a traditional sense and instead cultivating a sense of openness and receptivity. Resistance to dogma and definitions. Unlike many religious or philosophical systems that provide clear doctrines or rules, Taoism resists dogmatism. It avoids prescriptive teachings, instead encouraging individuals to discover their own path in alignment with the Tao. This lack of definitive structure can be disorienting for those seeking concrete guidance or fixed principles. For example, the Tao Te Ching offers cryptic verses that invite multiple interpretations. Its purpose is not to dictate but to provoke reflection, allowing each person to find their own way of embodying the Tao. Interconnectedness and holistic thinking. Taoism emphasizes the interconnectedness of all things and the cyclical nature of existence. This worldview contrasts sharply with the dualistic thinking common in many cultures, where concepts are divided into opposites, for example, good versus evil, right versus wrong. In Taoism, opposites like Yin and Yang are seen as complementary forces that coexist and transform into each other. Understanding this holistic perspective requires a shift in mindset, moving away from linear cause and effect reasoning to a more relational and dynamic understanding of reality. This paradigm shift can be challenging for those accustomed to categorizing and separating phenomena. The Tao exists beyond human constructs of good and evil, beyond notions of beginning and end. It is not something that can be owned, controlled, or even fully understood. Instead, it is something to be experienced, observed, and lived. Imagine trying to describe the wind. You might speak of its strength or direction, of how it feels against your skin, or how it rustles the leaves. But no matter how vivid your words, they cannot fully encapsulate the essence of the wind itself. The Tao is like this, present, palpable, and yet beyond articulation. The Tao as the source of all things. Tao is understood as the origin of everything in the universe. Laozi writes, "The Tao gives birth to one gives birth to two gives birth to three gives birth to all things." This cryptic verse points to the generative nature of the Tao. It is the wellspring from which all existence flows, the silent force that gives rise to the multiplicity of life. In this sense, the Tao is both transcendent and immanent. It is the unseen foundation of the cosmos and the living essence within every tree, river, and star. Unlike many other philosophical or religious traditions, Daoism does not personify the Tao as a deity or a creator. The Tao does not command or judge, it simply is. Its power lies in its subtlety and its constancy. It operates through natural processes, such as the changing of the seasons, the cycles of birth and death, and the flow of water down a mountain. This perspective invites a sense of humility. Humanity, with all its achievements and ambitions, is not separate from or superior to the rest of nature. We are part of the Tao, subject to its flow and dependent on its harmony. The Tao is often compared to water, soft yet powerful, yielding yet unstoppable. Water follows the path of least resistance, flowing around obstacles instead of forcing through them. It nourishes life effortlessly, fills the lowest places without complaint, and wears down the hardest rock over time. Laozi frequently invokes the metaphor of water to illustrate the Tao. The highest good is like water. Water benefits all things and does not compete. It flows to the places men disdain, and thus is like the Tao. This comparison highlights the Tao's quiet strength and its adaptability. Water does not seek to dominate or impose itself. It works in harmony with the terrain it encounters. Similarly, the Tao encourages us to live in alignment with the natural order rather than resisting or attempting to control it. Our obsession with control in modern society, driven by external pressures and internal anxieties, leaves little room for spontaneity, relaxation, and acceptance. By constantly trying to manage and micromanage every aspect of life, people are often left feeling overwhelmed and disconnected, contributing to the rising rates of depression and mental health issues. Dr. Harold C. Habine, at the meeting of the American Association of Industrial Physicians and Surgeons, said that he had made a study of 176 business executives whose average age was 44.3 years. He reported that slightly more than a third of these executives suffered from one of three ailments peculiar to high-tension living: heart disease, digestive tract ulcers, and high blood pressure. Think of it. A third of business executives are wrecking their bodies with heart disease, ulcers, and high blood pressure before they even reach 45. What shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his health? Even if he owned the whole world, he could sleep in only one bed at a time and eat only 3 meals a day. Even a ditch digger can do that, and probably sleep more soundly and enjoy his food more than a high-powered executive. We often believe that the harder we strive to dominate and control our circumstances, the happier or more fulfilled we will be. However, it doesn't take much observation to realize that this is far from the truth. Consider the example of a teenager. The more parents attempt to exert strict control over their behavior during childhood, the greater the likelihood that the teenager will rebel as they grow older. This is because excessive control can stifle a child's sense of autonomy and individuality, leading to frustration and a desire to assert independence. Over time, this built-up resistance often manifests as defiance or rebellion against authority. The Tao, however, invites us to consider this approach. Instead of struggling against the current of life, what if we allowed ourselves to be carried by it? Instead of imposing our will on the world, what if we learned to listen, adapt and flow? The softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest. That which offers no resistance can enter where there is no space. Thus I know the value of non-action. Wu Wei is a cornerstone of Taoist philosophy that encapsulates the essence of living harmoniously with the natural order of the universe, a term often translated as non-action. The concept of Wu Wei action through non-action is perhaps one of the most misunderstood ideas in Taoism. Even the term itself is paradoxical, seeming to suggest doing nothing at all. However, Wu Wei is better understood as effortless action. However, it is not about inaction or passivity. Rather, Wu Wei refers to a state of being where our actions flow so naturally with the world around us that they appear effortless. It is the kind of action that arises spontaneously from deep alignment with the Tao, where there is no struggle, no forcing, and no resistance. In this state, our actions are in perfect harmony with the natural order. And what might seem like non-action is, in fact, the most powerful, efficient form of doing. It's about letting go of control and trusting in the flow of life, allowing action to arise without strain or intention. One day, Lord Wenhui invited Cook Ding, his personal butcher, to demonstrate his skills. Cook Ding stepped forward carrying his well-worn knife. As he approached the ox, his movements were calm and deliberate. With a light touch, he began to cut, his blade gliding effortlessly through the animal as if dancing to an invisible rhythm. Lord Wenhui watched in awe. The way Cook Ding worked was mesmerizing. His hands and body moved as if guided by something beyond sight, something deeper. It was not just skill, it was artistry. When Cook Ding finished, Lord Wenhui exclaimed, "Amazing! How can your work be so perfect, so graceful? How is it that your blade moves as though it meets no resistance?" Cook Ding smiled humbly and replied, "What I do is not mere skill, my lord. Let me explain. When I first began butchering oxen, I saw nothing but the whole beast before me. I hacked and chopped my way through, struggling to get the job done. It was exhausting work, and I often dulled my knife quickly. But after years of practice, I no longer saw the ox in its entirety. I began to see its structure, where the joints lay, how the tendons connected. Now, after 19 years of butchering, my knife never meets resistance. I no longer see the ox with my eyes, but with my spirit. I work with the natural patterns of the ox. I move my blade into the spaces that are already there, gliding through the natural gaps between bones and muscles. This way my knife avoids the hard parts completely, and it has remained sharp for all these years." Cook Ding paused, then continued. "There is a secret to this, my lord. When I come to a difficult spot, I slow down, take a breath, and carefully feel my way through. I do not force the blade, but let it find its way naturally. In this way, I follow the Tao, the natural way of things. Kukding's mastery was not just about butchering. It was a reflection of living harmoniously with the world. This story of Kukding cutting the ox is a profound metaphor for the Taoist ideal of mastery through harmony and letting go. Kukding's effortless precision is not the result of brute force or mechanical techniques, but a deep attunement to the natural order of the ox's structure. By releasing the need to control and instead yielding to the innate patterns and spaces within the ox, he transforms a mundane task into an art form. His mastery lies in his ability to let go of rigidity, rely on intuition, and flow with the Tao. This teaches us that true skill and effortlessness emerge not from imposing our will on the world, but from aligning ourselves with its natural rhythms. Letting go rather than resisting or forcing allows us to act with grace, efficiency, and profound effectiveness, a lesson that extends far beyond butchery to the art of life itself. There is one key thing we must understand when it comes to grasping the concept of Wu Wei. Letting go of control and accepting the natural order is essential to flow in harmony with nature. There was a farmer who planted seeds and worked tirelessly to tend to them, hoping for a bountiful harvest. However, despite his hard work, the seeds didn't seem to grow as quickly as he expected. Frustrated, the farmer decided that he could speed up the growth of the crops by pulling them up out of the soil to see if they were growing faster. Each day he would pull the plants a little from the earth, hoping they would grow faster. A wise sage, seeing this, approached the farmer and asked, "Why are you pulling the crops from the soil every day?" The farmer replied, "I want them to grow faster here. I've worked hard and I need the harvest to come quickly. So I am helping them grow by pulling them up each day." The sage smiled and said, "You are doing the opposite of what you need. The crops will grow at their own pace and no amount of rushing will speed up the process. Instead, you must let them grow naturally, without interference. Your job is not to force growth, but to nurture and provide for it with patience." The farmer listened, realizing his mistake. He stopped pulling the crops out and allowed them to grow in their own time. The harvest came and the crops flourished as they had naturally. In our daily lives, we chase after things like wealth, power, or material luxuries. We may initially feel that we are the ones in control, striving toward these goals. However, over time, we often find that these very desires begin to control us instead. Take, for instance, the modern pursuit of money. We work long hours, sacrifice our time, and make choices based on the need to earn more, believing that financial security and the luxuries it brings will lead to happiness and fulfillment. But what often happens is that the pursuit of money becomes all-consuming. We may find ourselves constantly working harder to maintain or increase our earnings, perpetually chasing a goal that seems just out of reach. In the process, our lives become defined by our need for money, and we start sacrificing other aspects of life, our health, relationships, and peace of mind, just to meet financial targets, and in the end there is nothing left but money. In a Taoist sense, this situation reflects the Wu Wei principle, doing without force or acting in harmony with the natural flow of life. By trying to control money and material wealth, we move away from this natural flow, and in doing so, we often end up losing balance. We may become slaves to our desires, working harder and harder to achieve a lifestyle that we believe will bring happiness, only to realize that it is the pursuit itself that is causing stress and dissatisfaction. While the idea that nothing is impossible if you work hard may seem appealing and comforting, it overlooks an important truth. Sometimes the best course of action is simply accepting things as they are. This is not a sign of hopelessness, but rather a form of wisdom and humility. Similar to the practice of amor fati by the Stoics, instead of striving to force a grape from a peach tree, we must recognize that each situation has its natural course. With this humility, we learn to plant the peach tree's seed and nurture it, trusting that in time it will bear the fruit it is meant to. By accepting the way things are, we free ourselves from unnecessary struggle and allow life to unfold in its own perfect timing. Taoism teaches that simplicity leads to inner peace and contentment. The Tao Te Ching, attributed to Laozi, frequently warns against excessive desires, ambitions, and artificial constructs that lead to stress and suffering. According to Taoist thought, when people complicate their lives with excessive possessions, ambitions, or rigid expectations, they create unnecessary struggles. Instead, by embracing a simple life, one that flows naturally without force, people can cultivate tranquility. Wu Wei, as mentioned before, is central to this idea. It suggests that the best way to live is not through forceful striving, but by going with the natural current of life. When individuals stop overcomplicating their lives and start living in accordance with nature, they experience greater ease and happiness. Simplicity allows one to be present in the moment, appreciate what one has, and avoid the mental burden of excessive attachments. On a societal level, Taoism suggests that simplicity fosters harmony and reduces conflict. When leaders and individuals practice simplicity, they avoid greed, competition, and unnecessary complications in governance and daily interactions. Laozi argues that rulers who embrace simplicity govern effectively because they do not impose excessive laws, desires, or artificial structures upon their people. Instead, they allow society to function naturally without interference. Modern societies, with their complex bureaucracies, materialistic pursuits, and rigid social structures, often lead to stress and inequality. Taoism reminds us that a simpler way of life, one based on modest needs, natural rhythms, and reduced artificial constraints, can lead to more harmonious relationships. When people let go of status-seeking and unnecessary competitiveness, they foster cooperation, kindness, and genuine human connection. Spiritually, simplicity is a path to enlightenment in Taoism. The Tao is beyond words and definitions. It is something to be experienced rather than intellectually grasped. A complex, overly analytical mind often struggles to connect with the Tao, whereas a simple, open and receptive mind can intuitively align with it. Zhuangzi, another major Taoist thinker, frequently illustrates this through parables emphasizing the wisdom of ordinary, unpretentious beings who naturally embody the Tao without overthinking. He often praises the simple life of a hermit or an unassuming craftsman who, by not overcomplicating their actions or thoughts, attains a deep understanding of life's mysteries. There was once a man who loved to row his boat across a quiet river. One day, as he was enjoying the peaceful waters, he saw another boat drifting toward him. At first he thought nothing of it, but as the boat came closer and closer, it seemed to be on a direct collision course. The man called out, "Hey! Change your course, watch where you're going!" But the boat kept coming. Now frustrated, he shouted louder, "Are you blind? Move your boat! You're going to crash into me!" Still, the boat did not slow down or change direction. His frustration turned into anger. His face turned red, his fists clenched, and he prepared to hurl insults at the careless person inside the boat. But just as the boat reached him and lightly bumped into his own, he realized something. The boat was empty. There was no one to blame. There was no one steering the boat at all. At that moment his anger disappeared. The frustration, the rage, the desire to scold someone vanished. He laughed at himself for getting so worked up over nothing. He simply pushed the empty boat aside and continued rowing peacefully across the river. Zhuangzi used this story to illustrate a deep Taoist truth about human emotions and ego. When we believe someone is intentionally wronging us, whether by cutting us off in traffic, saying something rude, or acting in a way we dislike, we often react with anger. We assume that their actions are personal, that they are doing something to us. But if we realize that most things in life happen impersonally, like an empty boat drifting on a river, our anger disappears. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, a Hungarian-American psychologist, first began researching flow, the state of optimal experience, in the 1960s and 1970s. His research was published extensively, but his most well-known work, Flow, The Psychology of Optimal Experience, was published in 1990. He dedicated his career to understanding happiness, creativity, and peak performance, focusing on how people can find true enjoyment and fulfillment in their activities. Csikszentmihalyi first became interested in flow while studying artists and musicians. He noticed that painters would become so absorbed in their work that they would forget about hunger, thirst, or time. This deep focus and intrinsic motivation fascinated him, leading him to explore how people experience optimal experience in various fields. Flow, a psychological state of deep focus and effortless engagement, has been shown to significantly enhance productivity, creativity, and overall performance. Various studies across psychology, neuroscience, and business have explored how entering a flow state affects human potential. Research confirms that individuals and organizations that harness flow can achieve extraordinary efficiency and innovation. One of the most compelling studies on flow and productivity was conducted by McKinsey & Company. Their research found that executives who frequently enter flow states report being 5 times more productive than those who do not. This translates to a remarkable increase in productivity, around 5 times more than average. The study, which followed business leaders for a decade, concluded that organizations could massively boost efficiency if employees accessed flow more often. By minimizing distractions and encouraging deep engagement, businesses can foster a work environment that promotes peak performance. Flow also plays a crucial role in enhancing creativity. A study conducted by DARPA, Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, discovered that individuals in a flow state can increase their creative problem-solving abilities by around 400%. The research focused on subjects engaged in pattern recognition and rapid decision-making, both essential for innovation and creative breakthroughs. Participants in flow were able to solve complex problems significantly faster and more effectively than those who were not in the state, proving that flow can be a powerful tool for unlocking creative potential. Another area where flow demonstrates significant benefits is learning and skill acquisition. A Harvard study found that people in a flow state can learn up to around 230% faster than those who are not. This accelerated learning occurs because flow reduces distractions, increases focus, and enhances deep learning by strengthening neural connections. When individuals are fully immersed in an activity, their brains process information more efficiently, leading to faster mastery of new skills and concepts. Neuroscience research provides insight into how flow enhances brain function. Studies show that during a flow state, the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for self-doubt and overthinking, temporarily shuts down, allowing for faster, more intuitive decision-making. The brain releases dopamine, norepinephrine, and endorphins, which enhance motivation, focus, and problem-solving abilities. This neurological shift explains why elite athletes, musicians, and high-performing professionals describe flow as a state of effortless performance and peak creativity. By entering flow, individuals can push past mental barriers and perform at their highest potential and experience deep enjoyment. Taoism teaches that the key to a fulfilling life lies in simplicity, harmony with nature, and a carefree attitude. Rooted in the wisdom of Laozi and Zhuangzi, Taoism encourages individuals to live effortlessly, be kind and compassionate, and embrace the natural flow of existence. Instead of striving for power, wealth, or control, Taoists believe in going with the flow and finding joy in the present moment. By adopting a Taoist approach to life, one can experience true peace and contentment. A defining characteristic of the Taoist lifestyle is its carefree nature. Taoists do not stress over success, competition, or rigid rules. Instead, they follow the principle of Wu Wei, which means effortless action or non-forcing. This does not mean doing nothing, but rather it means acting in accordance with the natural rhythm of life without unnecessary struggle. For example, water is a common Taoist metaphor. Water does not fight obstacles, it flows around them, adapts to changes, and wears down even the hardest rock over time. Taoists believe that people should be like water, adaptable, gentle, yet powerful in their own way. By letting go of excessive desires and control, one can live freely and without unnecessary stress. This carefree mindset is beautifully illustrated in the story of the farmer who lost his horse. Once upon a time, in a quiet village, there lived a wise old farmer. One day, his only horse, a strong and beautiful stallion, ran away into the mountains. The villagers came to console him. "What terrible luck," they said. "Now you have no horse to plough your fields." The farmer simply smiled and replied, maybe not. Who knows?" A few days later, the horse returned, bringing with it a group of wild horses. Now the farmer had not one, but many horses. The villagers rejoiced. "What wonderful luck," they said. "You are now the richest man in the village." Again, the farmer calmly said, maybe not, who knows?" One day the farmer's son tried to tame one of the wild horses. The horse threw him off and he broke his leg. The villagers came again, shaking their heads. "What a tragedy! Your son can no longer help you on the farm." The farmer, still unfazed, replied, maybe not, who knows?" A few weeks later, the king's soldiers arrived in the village to recruit young men for war. Because the farmer's son had a broken leg, he was left behind while the other young men were taken away to battle. The villagers sighed. "How lucky you are. Your son was spared from war." The farmer simply smiled and said, maybe not, who knows?" This Taoist parable teaches that life is unpredictable, and events that seem good or bad in the moment may turn out differently in the future. Instead of judging situations too quickly or becoming overly emotional, it is wiser to accept life as it comes and go with the flow. The farmer's peaceful attitude shows the Taoist way, trusting the natural course of life, neither resisting nor clinging, but embracing whatever comes with calmness and wisdom. Another core belief in Taoism is that humans should live in harmony with nature, rather than trying to control it. Taoists see nature as a perfect example of balance and effortless flow. The seasons change without force, rivers carve paths effortlessly, and animals live simply, taking only what they need. People too should follow this natural order instead of resisting it. Many Taoist sages preferred living in the mountains, forests, or by rivers, far from the complications of city life. They believed that true wisdom comes not from books or rigid doctrines, but from observing the way nature works. The Tao is present in all things, and by aligning with it, one finds peace and fulfillment. Modern Taoist practitioners apply this principle by living simply, appreciating nature, and avoiding material excess. They believe that technology and ambition should not disconnect us from nature. Even in a modern world, one can embrace Taoist harmony by taking quiet walks, gardening, meditating, or simply observing the beauty of the natural world. Contrary to the idea that a carefree life means selfishness or irresponsibility, Taoism strongly emphasizes kindness and compassion. Taoists believe that force and aggression lead to disharmony, while gentleness and kindness create balance. Laozi, the author of the Tao Te Ching, wrote, "The softest thing in the world overcomes the hardest thing in the world." This means that kindness, patience, and understanding are stronger than force and aggression. A gentle stream can erode a mountain, just as kindness can dissolve hatred. Taoists practice compassion by treating others with respect and humility, helping without expecting rewards, living with gratitude and appreciating life's simple joys. The Taoist approach to life offers a refreshing alternative to modern stress and ambition. By adopting a carefree attitude, living in harmony with nature and practicing kindness, one can experience deep peace and fulfillment. Instead of chasing power or material wealth, Taoists find joy in simplicity and effortless living. Whether by flowing like water, observing nature's wisdom, or treating others with gentle compassion, Taoism teaches that the best way to live is lightly, joyfully, and in balance with the universe.